Hey everyone, I'm K.A. Will.
And I'm Gabby.
And welcome to another episode of Marriage Journey. We are K&G Culture. And we came up with that name because we realized even before we got married that you are actually responsible for the culture in your household. So it's not necessarily the culture that your parents grew up with, although that may have some influence. You ultimately decide how you're going to run your household, how you're going to deal with finances, how you're going to raise your kids, and how you interact with your spouse. So that's your culture. Yeah.
Great intro.
Thanks.
All right. So we talk a lot about K&G culture. So we want to kind of delve into what we view as our culture in our marriage. We did a previous video on what we want to, I guess, the value system that we want to develop with the kids and to teach them. But now we're going to talk about what our value system is between us. So in your intro, you said, before we got married, we thought about, we're going to make our own culture. So what were you thinking when you first got married, of what that looked like, what your goals were?
Yeah, so for me, I know that I wanted us to be on the same page as far as having similar goals in mind, working together, being able to know that, okay, if I try this or do this, my wife has my back. And the same thing, if my wife wants to try or do something else or whatever the case is, that I have her back. And we just know that we're there for each other 100%. So I know that was one of the things. Of course, there were some other expectations that we talked about before in a previous video. Actually, I think that was the first video we ever did. Marriage expectations. That you have to be careful with expectations. Because it's nothing wrong with knowing what you want, but expectations sometimes is assuming that the other person knows what that is.
Right.
And that's not communicated well. And I was definitely guilty of that. Because I guess I just expected, we come thinking that the other person is aware and already knows the mode or the role or the cookie cutter shape of what a husband is and what a wife is. But that's not necessarily the case. So communicating that is definitely important. So I guess another thing that I had in mind for us as that would be a part of our culture was, you and me both doing cooking, you and me both doing cleaning around the house, but I guess how we talked about before, gender roles, but I never really considered them gender roles, or thought, not that they weren't gender roles, but in my mind, it was just a natural thing. It wasn't, oh, that actually has a name, it's gender roles. But sharing that and it not being an issue. Like I said, I assumed or had the expectation that we would all just do what we had to do. So that was one thing. I wasn't expecting, I don't think, I knew you were a strong person, that you had a strong personality, but I wasn't expecting so much pushback, I think. So that was a thing.
Do tell, say more.
I can't even think of an example now, but I realize, part of your personality and my personality. Me, I'm just hey, if something comes up, let's get it done. And I realized whenever I would talk to you about something, if, say, an issue came up, whatever it was, you would always want to debate. And I'm just I'm not here for this. I'm here to get it done. Let's look at the problem and get it done. This whole back and forth thing. So that I had to learn to give space for that. So yeah, that was definitely another thing. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. Before marriage. Before marriage.
Well, while you think on that, I'll share my perspective. So when we first got married, or I don't think I did not think about creating my own culture
Mm-hmm.
explicitly, maybe subconsciously, but I was just like, I got a best friend now, and that's kind of all that I expected. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I have somebody who I can talk to about everything, and I think like the expectation of no one stepping out or anything like that. I think that was an unspoken rule. I don't think we ever really verbalized.
True.
This
That's
is
true.
what we shouldn't do. So, as I look back, that probably should be something that we should talk about. About the things like you said, expectations, things that we want, even though it seems like it would be common knowledge. But yeah, I just wanted a best friend.
Yeah. So I did think about something else. I realized that for me, creating a culture in our household, I took from, like I said in the intro, I took from my parents things that I would do and things I wouldn't.
Okay.
You see what I mean? So it's like now when we're getting married, I guess in my mind that was the thing that was forming. Those were the things that was forming what kind of culture that I wanted to have. So it wasn't. I say all that to say it wasn't like their culture. It wasn't exactly like theirs. I used it to form my own.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? As far as what I wanted. So yeah, like the good communication. Like I said, being there for each other. Treating each other with respect. Those type of things. Being able to be yourself. I mean, I know we probably talked about that before in a previous video, but I realized early on how important it was for each person to be allowed to be themselves, like giving them the space to be themselves. And you made that known as well, very early in the marriage. Like, hey, this is me. I want to be able to be myself. So yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you have anything.
Okay. So when you said that you thought of the things that the way you were raised and what things you're gonna pick and choose, I was like, okay, well, I guess I did think about how I wanted things done. I know I wanted us to apologize if we did something wrong because I didn't see that a lot.
Okay.
And I think part of being best friend is because I did not see how my parents were able to be themselves with each other, and so that's what I wanted. It was to be open with each other, to be best friends, to talk about things. What else? I didn't mind arguing and stuff, but I think verbally, my expectation was we wouldn't be yelling at each other, cussing each other out, none of that stuff. That even within a beautiful marriage or a beautiful like free relationship, there's still boundaries.
Right.
The importance of boundaries. See, maybe I did think of all this, but again, just didn't verbalize it, didn't have it written down or have a list or something. But yeah, having healthy boundaries. But later on throughout marriage, I realized the importance of safe space, because when we do something or say something that might annoy the other person, and you don't say safe space, that's it. I'm annoyed. But once you say safe space, then you could then you could be free to say what you want to say. But again, putting a boundary on my response, so that you can be who you are and not feel like there's any annoyance, or feel that there's annoyance.
Yeah. And I had to learn when you said about the whole arguing thing. I had to learn that it was okay to disagree. I was one of those people where I really didn't like confrontation. So definitely that was something that I learned along the way, because that wasn't one of my like expectations. Because I was, put it this way, I was thinking if everyone did what they were supposed to do, if everyone was like respectful and a good person generally, or what am I trying to say? If everyone was decent,
Mm-hmm.
had manners and that type of thing, then there wouldn't be much issues. So that's why I had to learn that disagreeing was okay. Like, there is a thing called healthy conflict. So that was something that I definitely had to learn in the marriage, and I'm glad that I did. Again, you made it known what your opinions were, and I appreciate that, because one thing, as you know, that I don't like is when people like don't make known what their feelings are, and instead of saying or expressing what's going on, they beat around the bush, or they're what's the word, passive aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, if you have something to say it. That's the way we can, because I'm definitely going to let you know, like, hey, this is how I feel about it. So that whole hiding behind not saying anything but secretly like getting bitter and like, I don't have time for that really bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people, again, goes back to expectations. People expect you to know that you offended them. They expect you to know that you made them mad. And I'm like, there are certain things, if you don't tell me, like, I would not even know that I offended you. And it's funny, we talked about this just this weekend. I was always of the sort of saying how I feel, but then I also realized I had to be careful how I said it. And that was something I learned from you as well. That, yeah, it's not what you're saying, but often the attitude or how it comes off
Right.
to the other person, even if you didn't mean for it to come off in an attitude-ish way.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we picked and chose what things that from our parents' marriage, or what we saw, what we could understand when we were younger, what things that we did like, what we didn't like, and then picking the good, choosing not to intentionally carry the bad. But unfortunately, some things are ingrained from years of conditioning that it's hard to break free from that. But but at least we tried to develop our own thing.
Yeah.
And even if it looks like our parents sometimes, but most of the time it doesn't, which is good. As far as like
the good
not
stuff
taking,
we took out.
Yeah, exactly. Seeing the good things, exactly. So.
Yeah, and it would have been helpful. It would have been helpful. Again, this is me, early in our marriage. I'm realizing it would have been helpful, though, if our parents actually discussed some of those things with us.
Yeah, man.
And I'm thinking we're going to have to do an episode about that, like the things that they didn't tell us. The things that we wish we knew if our parents had just had a conversation with us about marriage, or just had a conversation with us about the issues they went through personally, and the issues they went through personally in the marriage. So on the individual level, and then when they came together, like how those things mesh together when you get married. So yeah, I think we're gonna have to do an episode maybe next season. We'll do an episode on like the things we wish we were taught, or that we wish were talked about in our household when we were growing up. So that brings me to another point. I do remember one distinctly was I was not one to believe in or use the word divorce. So never messed with the D word. And I'll tell you why. And just to be clear, I'm not saying that there aren't situations where someone might need to get divorced. That's not what I'm saying. Definitely, if someone is beating you over the head, abusive relationship, then you need to leave, because your life is in danger and potentially someone else's life is in danger. So I'm not talking about that. In that case, you very well might need to just go ahead and get a divorce. But the second thing is that you mentioned that like was like a said rule between us was the whole cheating thing and infidelity. So it's like if someone, I don't think anyone is supposed to be attached to another person who is constantly stepping out and cheating on them. So those are the two instances that I can think of right now where definitely. So I just wanted to clear that up because I know there's a lot of opinions and people hear certain things and they interpret it a different way, like, oh, he's trying to say once you're married you're trapped. No, that's not what I'm saying. You need to leave, you need to leave. But what I am saying is we didn't want to use that word. I didn't believe in the D word because I always like in talking to people, I often saw that once that became an option, it was a quick out. Like, okay, as soon as this person messes up, like they were waiting for the person to mess up or waiting for them to have a disagreement or waiting for a financial problem or, anything. It could have been anything. Oh, this person doesn't have a job or this person lied to me about something, so we need to get a divorce. So just from my opinion, from, people that I've talked to and growing up, situations I've seen, to me, once you make divorce an option, a lot of people use it as a quick out. Like they don't give their all into the relationship. They don't give their all into the marriage. It's just like they're waiting for an opportunity. So I didn't want to be one of those people. So I put that out of my mind. Like, divorce is not an option. So that's just where I stood with divorce because now it makes you dig down deeper. Okay, if this is not an option, what would I really do if I wanted to stay? What am I willing to sacrifice? What am I willing to strive for? What am I willing to do to let this woman know that I love you so much that I'm not going anywhere? You know what I'm saying? Like, we need to work this out. Let's work together. Because oftentimes, the saying, like you said, people look at the other person as a problem and not make the problem the problem. So when divorce is out of the question, it's like, okay, what do we need to do? What can we do? And how can we move forward so that we can live our best lives together and then become stronger, like really become stronger because of whatever that issue was, because we chose to stay and work it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah. So I don't know if you had any other expectations or, well, not expectations, or things that you thought and knew that you wanted to make part of our culture as a married couple.
That's it. Like I said, making sure that we both have room to be ourselves, putting healthy boundaries, and being best friends.
Yeah. And I think, just to add this, I'll add one more thing. This happened after we got married and started working and all that stuff. Just wanting to be entrepreneurs, like eventually owning our own business, having a side hustle that can replace income, getting our time back. So that's like a goal of ours. We want that to be part of our culture. And I think definitely, well, not I think, I know for sure when the kids get older, teaching them about finances and how they can have their own business, that they don't have to necessarily work for someone else and they don't have to necessarily go to college, because there are a lot of people who are living successful lives, fruitful lives and productive lives who didn't go to college. And who don't work for someone else. Not that there's something wrong with working for a company or organization, but to me, it's more free. And going back to being yourself, you get to be yourself when you have your own company, have your own, provide for yourself in that way as an entrepreneur. So that's all I got. So we want to thank our Culture family for joining us for another episode of Marriage Journey. Pray that these discussions, these topics, cultivate and expose conversations in your household. Maybe there's some things that weren't said in your household that need to be brought up. And that's all we're hoping, that these episodes, these videos help you. This podcast helps you to stir up conversations and discussions that otherwise might not have come up. So thank you guys again. My name is K.A. Will.
And I'm Gabby.
Thanks again.